Hello, it's Amit Pawa again, and thank you for joining me for a talk that I gave at the annual Congress of the Association of Anaesthetists in the trainee section, specifically looking at how we might meet our regional anaesthesia competencies. And I hosted this session with Dr. Rosie Hogg and Professor Ed Mariano, and we both talked about different aspects of how you might meet your regional anaesthesia competencies. My task was to talk about social media and videos. My usual disclaimer slide to tell you that I do have a YouTube channel and a podcast, and those QR codes will take you to those areas. Now, why is this relevant? Why is it important that we must look at how to meet regional anaesthesia competencies? Well, there's three papers I want to use as a baseline for this, and the QR codes here will take you to the European Society of Anaesthesia and Intensive Care guidelines on the perioperative use of ultrasound in regional anaesthesia, a national survey that was organised by the Regional Anaesthesia Research Network, and another mixed method analysis that was looking at regional anaesthesia education for consultants and specialists. So let's look at what these studies said specifically. What they covered is the fact that ultrasound is recommended for Plan A blocks for regional anaesthesia, and it highlighted that there is a disparity in regional anaesthesia training in the UK. The thing that was highlighted specifically was chest and abdominal wall procedures. They also mentioned that having a departmental lead for regional anaesthesia improves training, and that we noticed that people only felt that they were comfortable performing blocks when they had done more than 20 of a given technique. It also highlighted the importance of having a structured training program. Now, when specifically looking at consultants and specialists and their delivery of training, it noticed that there were some gaps in their proficiency in training, and only 22% of consultants and specialists were confident in all Plan A blocks. That's clearly a problem if these are the people that are going to be teaching our residents and consultants and specialists of the future. And certainly those consultants and specialists that were least confident were those that had more than 10 years of experience. The other thing that these papers highlighted was the value that lectures, video, e-learning and simulation may have in delivering regional anaesthesia training. So I'm going to cover the curriculum and the volume of information required to cover for regional anaesthesia. I'm also going to give you some suggestions as to where to start. I'm going to tell you what happens if you use Google and YouTube, and finally looking at social media. So you will all be familiar with this 2021 curriculum for CCT and anaesthetics now, and the high-level learning outcome for regional anaesthesia, which is now a core competency, is that we should be able to provide safe and effective regional anaesthesia. They've divided up those stage learning outcomes and key capabilities across the different stages of training. And what I'm going to do now is populate these areas and these stages with all of the information that you need to know. And you can see there's a lot. So there's a lot of overlap between the stages. There are some components that only feature one stage and not another, but you can see there's a whole volume of information. Now, when I look at that as a trainer, the first thing I think of is, oh my goodness, it's a little bit overwhelming, but there are some common themes. So with that in mind, where should we start? And one thing you could do is, it seems to be the vogue now, is to ask artificial intelligence. So I asked ChatGPT, and the first thing I asked ChatGPT is, how can I find resources to meet the Royal College of Anaesthetists curriculum requirements for regional anaesthesia? And let's see what it came up with. So some really good stuff. It said use the curriculum, use the resources on their website, courses, workshops, simulation training, textbooks, and it recommends a few. That also talks about online resources, webinars and videos, practical experience. This is actually great because it gives you a lot of information and potential areas where you can search. So that was not a bad place to start. If we look at the different resources that have been recommended, well, of course, we've got books. So let's start off with books. One of the biggest problems with books is they're not cheap. They cost money. Where do you keep them, and how do you know which book to use? It might be that one year a particular book is vogue, and then a few techniques will come out that will get updated, and you get the new version, and then the book that you had before is out of date. So books are great, but it takes a long time for a book to be conceived, for the chapters to be written, and then for it to come out, and then there's a whole host of books. So how do you know which book to use? That's a problem. Journals, I've got another lecture all about journals, but the issue is you've got to get access to these journals. There are so many journals. Which ones do you use? And what happens if you haven't got access to these journals? And then again, looking at websites and videos, there are lots of potential sources that you can use, but are they accurate? How do you know which websites, which videos to look at? The choices are endless. So there's a lot of things that can kind of blow your mind away. So I decided to look at, if you were to type in how do you do an interscaling block into Google, what might you come up with? Well, it's likely that you're going to get these links to websites, videos, images, and books. And again, I've highlighted some of these issues, but when it comes to websites and images, you might get an educational website such as that from Nicora or the Canadian version of the Ultrasound Regional Anaesthesia. You may get YouTube links, National Regional Anaesthesia Society such as RAUK, somebody's personal website or personal web page, and of course some journal pages will come up as well. When you look at videos, clearly the majority of videos that you'll get linked to come from YouTube. And again, that could be a specialist society, an ultrasound company, or somebody's personal YouTube channel. You may also get videos that come from Twitter or LinkedIn, or from TikTok and Instagram. So when you've got all of this information, how do you know what to trust? If only there were a resource available to help us. Well, it just so happens that there actually is a resource. This code will take you, QR code will take you to the RAUK curriculum guidance, and they go through each of the stages of the curriculum and highlight some really great resources, along with hyperlinks that will take you to a journal, to a book chapter, to an e-learning resource, a podcast. There's a whole host of information there. So RAUK have done the work for you. They've gone through each of those competencies in the Royal College of Anaesthetists regional anaesthesia area and highlighted useful content. There is no doubt that we are now living in a digital age, and we've got loads of video and visual content. That's how we learn. We learn by visual content. And because most of you have got access to these devices, you either have smartphones with you the whole time, you may have an iPad, or you may be, you've got a computer at home, a desktop computer that you work. So these devices and these resources are freely available. So let's look at some of these video resources. Videos, as I've mentioned before, can be found very nicely on YouTube, but some of the other social media platforms such as Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn also have videos available for your digestion. Regional anaesthesia is really suited to viducation because you've got dynamic probe positioning, you can see what you do with the probe and what image you generate, and also there's a lot of explanation about anatomy and sonoanatomy. It's available 24 hours a day via all of the devices I've talked about before, and it's available for just-in-time learning. So just before you join a list, you can refresh your memory on a particular block or a technique. But there is a but, and there is a big but. What is that big but? Many of these videos do not have peer review. There's no quality control or content verification. How do we know what the minimal acceptable content of a video is so you can go away and practice it safely? There is a risk that if you just look at the top points, you don't realise some of the risks and the complications, some of the variants that may be relevant. And the top videos that get pushed to the top of your feed are not necessarily selected by quality. So again, let's have a look at YouTube. What is YouTube? It is the largest online video sharing platform. It's the second largest search engine after Google, and it's the second most visited website in the world. Believe it or not, there are 1.3 billion videos uploaded. I'm sure that number has gone up since I've recorded this video. And there are at least 5 billion videos watched per day. Now, do you have any idea what the most popular video has that has got 15 billion views? If you don't know, I will show it to you. It's Baby Shark, and I'm sure all of you are humming that tune in the background. So there are a lot of people that access this platform. So if we look specifically at YouTube, I wonder whether anyone's looked at the value of YouTube and regional anaesthesia education. Well, in fact, they have. There are a number of papers here looking at how YouTube can be used by regional anaesthesia practitioners to learn techniques. Now, what have these papers highlighted? Well, what they've highlighted is that videos are often used to learn regional anaesthesia. That won't surprise you. They comment that some of these videos are excellent, but some of them have variable quality. and some of the short or top viewed videos may miss some essential details. They also explain that having a rating system may help, so at least we know which videos have the minimum content required for learning. So this is an example of how they've rated some of these videos, and you can see we've got different videos: interscaling, supraclavicular, infraclavicular, and axillary, and each video number is labelled across the x-axis, and the y-axis are a number of questions they would ask per video. So does it show probe positioning? Does it show complications? Does it show dose of local anaesthetic? And the higher the video scored, the darker the colour will be. So for example, if you look under auxiliary videos, video number 26 scores very highly because there's a lot of blue, but there are a lot of videos that are out there that don't score that highly. This is another assessment where they used the NICE-SORA, the New York School of Regional Anaesthesia, and other such websites as the benchmark for highest quality content. And then they looked at YouTube videos across a whole range of techniques and marked them. The YouTube videos are in red and the benchmark standards are in blue. And you'll see, depending upon the different techniques that are looked at, so whether you're looking at general considerations, local anaesthetic volume, the landmarks, the atlas picture of anatomy, the YouTube videos vary in their quality and how much information they tell you. So there are some ways of directing learners to curated content. The American Society of Regional Anaesthesia and Pain Medicine have created a best assessment rubric, happens to use a nice acronym of PAIN, where they score videos according to these criteria, and if they make the cut, they will feature them on the ASROP website. And again, I've already talked to you about RA UK and how they've managed to curate some of the information, and that QR code will take you to the RA UK curriculum guidance document. Now again, if you look at, if I just look at my YouTube channel, I recommend Duke Regional Anaesthesia and Pain Medicine videos made by Jeff Gadsden, Vicente Roquez and Kijin Chin. These are people that have taken the time to create some really useful YouTube content, but I'm also going to promote some new guys. So this is Dr. Tuhin Mystery and Dr. Mick Kerr. Both of these guys have got great YouTube channels that find novel ways to get the information across, and I would highly recommend that you watch these channels, subscribe to them, and get as much information as you can. So what should the ideal regional anaesthesia video have? So if you were to search for a video, I think it'd be great if you have a video which has got audio with explanation. I want to credit Stavros Proneas here for this lovely diagram which I've featured in the center over here. So the ideal video should have an audio with explanation. Ideally, it should show you the indication for the block and show you the dermatomes that are affected, plus or minus the myotomes and the sclerotomes or osteotomes. It should have anatomy and sonoanatomy, show you the probe that you should use and the settings, tell you what position to have the patient in, and highlight the important structures you need to see to do the block and to avoid. Ideally, it should show you how to hold your position with your hand and the probe and what image you generate with that, and show you how to insert the needle and the effect of local anaesthetic injection in the correct place. It should make comment on the local anaesthetic dose, and it should talk about the complications. So when you look at the videos that are out there, you have some videos which have just got a scanning video with the demonstration only. You've got some that will show you just the block by itself with no other information, some with just the sonoanatomy, and some with a long lecture format. You may have a short lecture format, scanning and the block technique, anatomy, scanning and block, and the tips and tricks. And a lot more people now have been focusing on just the tips and tricks. They know that people know how to perform the technique, but now they focus on the high-end stuff, what you can do to optimize your image to get the best view or the pitfalls to avoid. And I think it's useful. You should try to watch different styles, whether you watch just a standard scanning technique, whether you watch something that gives you all of that information, gives you the anatomy, allows you to see things in a bit more detail, and then go through some of the short lecture formats like Kijin Chin's got some of those and some tips and tricks. And again, Vicente Roquez has a really great short form videos to give you all of that information. All of those different video styles are useful. So if you're going to learn block X, like an interscaling brachial plexus block, look at all of those different video styles and you'll take something new from each of those. What about social media? Well, I've got to talk about a couple of papers here. These QR links will take you to some papers that have talked about the value or the power of regional anaesthesia via social media and how social media can help us with that information. So if we would look at Instagram and TikTok, these are typically images or short video form content. Be careful on the content because you may not always get what you're expecting and it can be addictive, but there really is some good regional anaesthesia content. And I've referenced these guys before, but Blocker Girl, Sarah Amaral, Vicente Roquez, Ben Fox and Melody Herman all have useful videos on these platforms that are worthwhile checking out. We do have to talk about Twitter because it's become very topical now, or it's now as it's known as X. This is a resource that can be useful. It's useful because you can keep up with the latest research and engage directly with authors, ask them questions, get access to a whole host of educational material, and of course share knowledge and experience. Just to show you, from a conference back in 2021, we were able to get up to 20 million impressions from this particular conference just by sharing knowledge via social media. Is this going to be impacted by X? Maybe, and it just so happens there are now new social media profiles that have come out there. We've got Blue Sky, which may be taking over the role of X. The negatives, of course, of sharing things via social media such as X is that there's no peer review. It is an echo chamber, and sometimes you can hype something, and if something becomes very popular on social media without an evidence base, people may start practicing it or following it without robust guidelines as to how and when to use it. And there is the potential for trolling on these social media networks, and people can spend way too much time on social media. So there are some things you can do. You can follow these hashtags, regional anaesthesia spelt with and without the A to get the American and the English version, and follow some useful people that can give you good curated content, as well as following the journals. There is another nice paper here that shows you how you can use social media professionally, and it talks about advocacy, branding, communication, direct networking, and of course education. And there's another paper here that talks about the value of having information validated by a third party before it gets out there. I do have to talk about podcasts. I have my own conflict of interest. Podcasts are a great way of getting information because you can access them on your phone, on your watch while you're out for a run. They can augment learning if you assume and understand that they are often opinion-based, but you can multitask while you're listening to a podcast. It's a conversational style, and it's a different way of taking on information or building on that baseline information that you have. Do I have any recommendations? Well, yes, I do. Of course, I would recommend Block It Like It's Hot, which is a great way of topping up your regional anaesthesia education. I host it with my colleague and friend, Dr. Jeff Gadsden. So if you're looking for another way to augment your regional anaesthesia learning, please do check it out. So in summary, videos and social media become part of multimodal education. They're an essential way to bulk up your learning. Use the Regional Anaesthesia UK resources via that QR code, but you do have value in attending courses and workshops, but there is no substitute for in-theatre, hands-on practice. I do have a YouTube channel, so if you do get the chance, please feel free to check it out, and I'm guessing you're watching this video on that channel. There's plenty more to come. Thank you very much.